From Toronto, Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Energy. In her 2014 report, the Auditor General found that the government had forced smart meters onto Ontarians without doing a business case analysis or cost-benefit analysis. The cost of the program doubled to $2 billion, just as the NDP predicted it would. And last week, we learned that time-of-use pricing had shifted less than 1% of peak demand, even though peak pricing is double that of off-peak pricing. Many Ontarians are unable to change their pattern of energy use because they need to use the power when they need to use it. Will the government stop forcing time-of-use pricing onto Ontarians?
Thank you. Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to be able to rise and talk about some of the things that I talked about yesterday that will relate to smart meters yesterday. Yesterday, I spoke to the Empire Club. There was 300 business leaders and energy leaders there listening to what we were having to say. And what we were talking about, Mr. Speaker, is utilizing some customer choice options, right? Because right now, Mr. Speaker, we're doing the long-term energy plan consultations right across the province. And improving customer choice, allowing customers to look at choice, Mr. Speaker, is something that we need to look at, and I think that's what we're going to see come from the long-term energy plan. Smart meters will allow that to happen, Mr. Speaker, because right now it is an interesting thing when we have condo dwellers in downtown Toronto, for example, on the same price plan as seniors who are living in a bungalow, for example, in my great riding of Sudbury or in Sault Ste. Marie or in St. Catharines, Mr. Speaker. So looking at some of those options, Mr. Speaker, would be important, and that was the foresight that this government had by bringing forward the smart meters, Mr. Speaker, and making sure that we implemented that so we can actually continue to move forward.
Supplementary.
Well, I've never heard that called foresight before. Extraordinary. Time-of-use pricing punishes consumers like new moms, like seniors, like low-income families who can conserve energy but don't necessarily have the option of using it at another time. They have to use it when they need to use it. When will the minister stop punishing Ontarians by forcing them to use time-of-use pricing? When will you stop punishing them?
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know he hasn't heard the word foresight before because it's actually called planning, and it's something that they don't have when it comes to the energy sector, Mr. Speaker. But we do have a plan, Mr. Speaker. Our long-term energy plan is actually looking at many things that we can do to actually help downward pressure on rates. We've talked about that, the 8% reduction, Mr. Speaker, the 20% reduction, we've talked about those quite often, Mr. Speaker. Those are great options and great plans for people to actually see downward pressure on rates. But we continue to find ways and look at the technology that is coming forward, Mr. Speaker. We've got storage. We've got great jobs coming in the storage sector and great ways of actually reducing our energy costs. Let's look and challenge the sector, Mr. Speaker, to be more efficient when it comes to our great supply mix that we have. There are many things that we can do, Mr. Speaker, and that's because we've built a clean, reliable power system, one that we can all be proud of, and one that we can continue to enhance.